Much respect to the better bachelor. I am talking about. He talked about this subject. Now I'm going to talk about this subject. Um, how more and more, transgenders are seeing the brutal truth about going against the natural order of things, the God-given design. You have a lot of transgenders. A very high percentage, almost 80%, 90% of them commit suicide after realizing what they have done, being trans. It's a dirty little secret not talked about in the medical field. Also, the fact when a doctor tries to tell the truth about this horrible tragedy, their license can be taken away and kicked out of their practice. So let's begin. Crossing the divide. Do men really have it easier? These transgender guys found the truth was more complex. In the 1990s, the late Stanford neuroscientist Ben Barres transitioned from female to male. He was in his 40s and mid-career, and afterward he marveled at the stark changes in his professional life. Now that society saw him as male, his ideas were taken more seriously. He was able to complete a whole sentence without being interrupted by a man. A colleague who didn't know he was transgender even praised his work as much better than her sisters. Clinics have reported an increase in people seeking medical gender transitions in recent years, and research suggests the number of people identifying as transgender has risen in the past decade. Touchstones such as Caitlyn Jenner's transition, the bathroom controversy, and the Amazon series Transparent have also made the topic a bigger part of political and cultural conversation. But it's not always evident when someone has undergone a transition, especially if they've gone from female to male. Transgender guys have a relatively straightforward process. We just simply add testosterone and watch their bodies shift, said Joshua Safer, executive director at the Center of Transgender Medicine and Surgery at Mount Sinai Health System and Econ School of Medicine in New York. Within 6 months to a year, they start to virilize, getting facial hair, a ruddier complexion, a change in body odor, and a deepening of the voice. Transgender women have more difficulty passing. They tend to be bigger boned, more masculine looking, and these things are hard to reverse with hormone treatments, Safer said. But transgender men will get will go get jobs and the new boss doesn't even know they're trans. We spoke with four men who transitioned as adults to the bodies in which they feel more comfortable. Their experiences reveal the gulf between how society treats men and women in many ways as wide now as it was when Barris transitioned, but their diverse backgrounds provide further insight into how race and ethnicity inform the gender divide in subtle and sometimes surprising ways. Wow. I'll never call the police again. Tristan Cutland, 50, Berkeley, California, professor of gender studies at California State University, Stanilis, and editor of Transgress Press, which publishes books related to the transgender experience, transitioned in 2008. Life doesn't get easier as an African American male. Oh, the way that police officers deal with me, the way that racism undermines my ability to feel safe in the world, affects my mobility, affects where I go. Other African American, Latino Americans grew up as boys and were taught to deal with that at an early age. I had to learn from my black and brown brothers about how to stay alive in my new body and retain some dignity while being demeaned by the cops. One night, somebody crashed a car into my neighbor's house, and I called 911. I walked out to talk to the police officer. He pulls a gun on me, and says, "Stop, stop, get on the ground." I turned around to see if there's someone behind me. He goes, "You, get on the ground." I'm in I'm in pajamas and barefoot. I get on the ground, and he checks me. And afterward, I said, "What was all that about?" He said, "You were moving kind of funny." Later, people told me, "Man, you crazy. You never called the police." I get pulled over a lot more. I got pulled over more in the first 2 years after my transition than I did in the entire 20s I was driving before that. Before, when I been stopped, even for real violations like driving 100 miles an hour, I got off. In fact, when it happened in Atlanta, the officer and I got into a great conversation about the Braves. Now, the first two questions they ask are, do I have any weapons in the car? And am I on parole or probation? This is what you wanted, right? She forgot when she was a female how all the perks she had, how she could just flirt with an officer. Not saying she did, but you know, with men, you know, men, if you're cute looking, men will flirt with you and have a good conversation. Probably just even just write you, just a summons, and you know, don't have to do it again. Race influences how people choose to transition. I did an ethnographic study of trans men and found that 96% of African American and Latino men want to have surgery, while only 45% of white respondents do. That's because a trans history can exacerbate racial profiling. When they pat you down, if you don't have a penis, it's going to be obvious. Or if you're a trans woman and you have a penis, that becomes obvious. If they picked you up for popping a wheelie or smoking weed, if they find out you're trans, it can be worse for you. There are also ways in which men deal with sexism and gender oppression that I was not aware of when I was walking around in a female body. A couple of years after my transition, I had a grad student I'd been mentoring. She started coming on to me, stalking me, sending me emails and texts. My advisor and the dean both women laughed it off. It went on for the better part of the year, and that was the year that I was going up for tenure. It was a very scary time. I felt worried that if the student felt I was not returning her attention, she would claim that I assaulted her. I felt like, as a guy, I was not taken seriously. I had experienced harassment as a female person at another university, and they had reacted immediately, sending a police escort with me to and from campus. I felt like I had been in my old body. If I had been in my old body, I would have gotten a lot more support. Being a black man changed the way I moved in the world. I used to walk quickly or run to catch a bus. Now I walk at a slow pace, and if I am late, I don't dare rush. I'm hyper aware of making sudden or abrupt movements, especially in airports, train stations, and other public places. I avoid engaging with unfamiliar white folks, especially white women. If they catch my eye, white women usually clutch their purses and cross the street. While I love urban aesthetics, I stopped wearing hoodies and traded my baggy jeans, oversized jerseys, and colorful skull caps for close-fitting jeans, khakis, and sweaters. These changes blunt assumptions that I'm going to snatch purses or merchandise or jump the subway turnstile. The less visible I am, the better my chances of surviving. But it's not foolproof. I'm an academic sitting at a desk, so I exercise where I am. I walk to the post office to mail some books, and I put on this 40-pound weight vest that I walk around in. It was about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and I'm walking back. All of a sudden, police officers drove up out of the car and stopped. I had my earphones on, so I didn't know they were talking to me. I looked up, and there was a helicopter above me. And now I can kind of see why people run, because you might live if you run, even if you haven't done anything. This was in Emeryville, one of the wealthiest enclaves in North California, where there's security galore. Someone had seen me walking to the post office and called in and said they saw a Muslim with an explosive vest. One cop, a white guy, picked it up and laughed and said, "Oh, I think I know what this is. It's a weight belt." It's not only humiliating, but it creates anxiety on a daily basis. Before, I used to feel safe going up to a police officer if I was lost or needed directions, but I don't do that anymore. I hike a lot, and if I'm hiking and I see a dead body, I'll keep on walking. I'll never call the police again. This is the price they pay. It now feels as though I am on my own. Coast Guard veteran, works at a Naval Medical Center, San Diego, as a clinical social work case manager, editor of anthologies about transgender men. Started transition in 2005. Prior to my transition, I was an outspoken radical feminist. I spoke up often, loudly, and with confidence. I was encouraged to speak up. I was given awards for my efforts. Literally, it was like, "Oh yeah, speak up, speak out." When I speak up now, I'm often given the direct or indirect message, that I'm mansplaining. Oh, so this right here is a feminist who's actually seeing it from a man's point of view, taking up too much space or asserting my white male heterosexual privilege. Never mind that I am first generation Mexican American, a transsexual man, and married to the same woman I was with prior to my transition. I find the assertion that I am now unable to speak out on issues I find important offensive, and I refuse to allow anyone to silence me. My ability to emphasize has grown exponentially because now I now factor men into my thinking and feeling about situations. Prior to my transition, I rarely considered how men experience life or what they thought, wanted, or liked about their lives. I have learned so much about the lives of men through my friendships with men, reading books and articles by and for men through the men I serve as a licensed clinical social worker. Social work is generally considered to be female dominated, with women making up about 80% of the profession in the United States. Currently, I work exclusively with clinical nurse case managers, but in my previous position as a medical social worker working with chronically homeless military veterans, mostly male, who are grappling with a substance use disorder and severe mental illness, I was one of the few men among dozens of women. Plenty of research shows that life events, medical conditions, and family circumstances impact men and women differently. But when I would suggest that patient behavioral issues like anger or violence may be a symptom of trauma or depression, it would often get dismissed or outright challenged. The overreaching theme was men are violent, and there was no excuse for their actions. I do not notice. I'm sorry. I do notice that some women do expect me to acquiesce or concede to them more now. Let them speak first. Let them board the bus first. Let them sit down first, and so on. I also notice that in public spaces, men are more collegial to me. They express through verbal and nonverbal messages, head lifting when passing me on the sidewalk, and using terms like brother and boss man to acknowledge me. As a former lesbian feminist, I was put off by the way that some women want to be treated by me now that I'm a man, because it violates a fundamental belief I carry, which is that women are fully capable human beings who do not need men to acquiesce or concede to them. Starting to realize the perks they had as females, and now those perks go away. What continues to strike me is the significant reduction in friendliness and kindness now extended to me in public places. It now feels as though I am on my own. No one outside of my family and close friends is paying attention to my well-being. I can recall a moment where this difference hit home. A couple of years into my medical gender transition, I was traveling on a public bus early one weekend morning. There were 6 people on the bus, including me. One was a woman. She was talking on a mobile phone very loudly and remarked that men are such a-holes. I immediately looked up at her and then around at the other men. Not one lifted his head to look at the women or note it or anyone else. The woman saw me look at her and then commented to the person she was speaking with about some men assholes on the bus right now looking at me. I was stunned because I recall being in a similar situations, but in reverse many times. A man would say or do something deemed obnoxious or offensive, and I would solidarity with women around me. We made eye contact, rolled our eyes, and may even comment out loud on the situation. I'm not sure I understand why men did not respond, but it made a lasting impression on me. To All right, for us men, when that happens, we don't care because we don't know the situation. The woman could just be saying that because she didn't get her own way. The same thing in reverse sometimes when um, men don't get their own way with a woman. Like, let's say the man may want extra food in his plate, going to a certain diner, and he only gets a certain amount, and the man will, say a bad word about her. You know, it's the same thing but in reverse. Okay. Let's listen to this person right here.
goal, and that was not to let it define me. I just wanted to get through it and be the man I always knew myself to be. It took some time, but in the end, I achieved that goal. I'm not my parents' transgender son. I'm their son. My friends don't introduce me as their trans friend Chris, just Chris. I don't consider myself transgender anymore. The word transition means going from one place to another, and I'm there. And if I had to check a box, I would check male. I would not check transgender. To me, I was transgender. I'm not ashamed of it. I just consider it part of my gender history. I don't mind people knowing. I've never kept it a secret, but I just like people to get to know me for me first.
The thing is, the problem is when you get to know them for them, and people want to reject you. There's the issue there. Okay, that's the problem. All right, that's the problem right there, and some people don't want to understand that. That you can't, they get rejected, they have a hissy fit about it. But this is part of it, and this is the life that they want to push on people. This is what they want to push on our kids. Okay. And some, as an after the black transgender going from black woman to black male, she sees the reality of what black men go through. And there was one person who's a Mexican right here, Mexican descent. Now this woman who's transgendered herself to be a man, she's a fake man. She's seeing what men go through. And she's seeing the backlash. Your chromosomes will always tell you what you are. You are a man, or you are a woman. Is all you're doing is altering the human body that you're in. Nothing more. And this is where the problems come out. All right. People are not understanding that, though. And now they have to deal with the feminism and the unfairness of how men are treated, regardless of, just being man, or the fact that they are of different ethnicity, especially being African American. And that's what they're dealing with. Okay. Took control of my career. Chris Edwards, 49, Boston, advertising creative director, public speaker, and author of the memoir Balls. It Takes Some to Get Some. Transition in his mid-20s. Her mid-20s. When I began my transition at age 26, a lot of my socializing came from the guys at work. For example, as a woman, I did walk down the hall and bump into some of my female coworkers, and they'd say, "Hey, what's up?" And I'd say, "Oh, I just got out of this client meeting. They killed all my scripts, and now I have to go back and rewrite everything. Blah, blah, blah. What's up with you?" And then they tell me their stories. As a guy, I bumped into a guy in the hall, and he says, "What's up?" And I launch into my story about my day, and he's already down the hall. And I'm thinking, well, that's rude. So I'm think, okay, well, I guess guys don't really share. So next time I'll keep it brief. By the third time, I realized just not. The creative department is largely male, and the guys accepted me into the club. I learned by example and modeled my professional behavior accordingly. For example, I kept noticing that if guys wanted an assignment, they'd ask for it. If they wanted a raise or promotion, they'd ask for it. This was a foreign concept to me. As a woman, I never felt that it was polite to do that, or that I'd had the power to do that. But after seeing it happen around me, I decided that if I felt I deserved something, I would just ask for it too. By doing that, I took control of my career. It was very empowering. Apparently, people were only holding the door for me because I was a woman rather than out of common courtesy, as I had assumed. Not just men, women too. I learned this the first time I left the house presenting as a male. When a woman entered the department store in front of me, I just let the door swing behind her. I was caught off guard and I walked into it face first. When you're socially transitioning, you want to blend in, not stand out. So it's uncomfortable when little reminders pop up that you're not like everybody else. I'm expected to know everything about sports. I like sports, but I'm not deep like a lot of guys. For example, I love watching football, but I never played the sport. Wasn't an option for girls back in my day. So there's a lot I don't know. I remember the first time I was in a wedding as a groomsman. I was maybe 3 years into my transition. I was lined up for photos with all the other guys, and one of them shouted, "High school football pose." And on cue, everybody dropped down and squatted like an offensive line. I was like, what the hell is going on? It was not instinctive to me since I never played. I tried to mirror what everyone else is doing, but when you see the picture, I'm kind of offsides to speak. Homework made me more impatient. I had a lot of female friends, and one of my qualities they loved about me was that I was a great listener. After being on testosterone, they informed me that my listening skills weren't as what they used to be. Here's an example. I was driving with one of my best friends, Beth, and I asked her, "Is your sister meeting us for the dinner?" 10 minutes later, she's still talking, and I still have no idea if her sister is coming. So finally, I couldn't take it anymore, and I snapped. And I said, "Is she coming or not?" And Beth was like, you used to like hearing all the backstory and how I get around to the answer. A lot of us have noticed a lot of us have noticed you've become more impatient lately, and we think that's damn testosterone. It's definitely true that some male behavior is governed by hormones. Instead of listening to a woman's problem and being empathetic and nodding along, I would do this stereotypical guy thing, interrupt and provide a solution to cut the conversation short and move on. I'm trying to be better at this. Yeah, that's what we do because we don't like to hear a bunch of blah blah blah. We don't want to hear the blah blah blah. We want to get right to the point. What is it? What is the problem? What is the answer to this question? Is she coming or not? We don't want to hear that. We want a specific answer because you could be talking all that and then blah 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 the backstory and then forget to answer the question. And then the question, it goes to the wayside. It goes off topic. Is she coming or not? Yes or no? That's all that has to be answered. That's it. Because men are meant to be logical thinkers. Okay, we're meant to, you know, what is the answer to this question? 2 plus 2 is 4. Okay, some women will be like, well, blah 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 blah. My day was this, and two. Let's say you ask them. Okay, starting over. Let's say you ask them, what's two? For the sake of the argument, what's 2 plus 2? Well, my day was this and that and stuff like that, and da 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 da. Get annoyed. That's why God, God made the female brain and the male brain different. Okay, no matter how much testosterone you pump in, you're still going to be female. No matter how much estrogen you pump into the body, the brain will still be a man. You know, you could change up. A man could try to change into a woman. He's still a man. A woman could try to change into a man could try to change into a woman. He'll still be a man. A woman will try to change into a man, still be a man. Okay, and this is why you have all this mix-up. This is why they're going through all this crap right now. People ask if being a man made me more successful in my career. My answer is yes, but not for the reason you might think. As a man, I was finally comfortable in my own skin. That made me more confident. At work, I noticed I was more direct, getting to the point, not apologizing before I said anything or tiptoeing around or trying to be delicate like I used to be. In meetings, I was more outspoken. I stopped posing my thoughts as questions. I'd say what I meant and what I wanted to happen instead of dropping hints and hoping people would read between the lines and pick up on what I really wanted. I was no longer shy about stating my opinions or defending my work. When I gave presentations, I was brighter, funnier, or more engaging, not because I was a man, because I was happy. Oh boy. The thing is, this person, from what I'm gathering, just wanted to be in control. That's it. This woman wanted to be in control, and she didn't fit in. She didn't want to fit into her role as being a woman. Okay, and that's the problem. You have a lot of women. That's all they care about is their career. Okay, um, how they want to get ahead, and they do. When it comes to a man, they can't handle the natural order of things. All right, and that's how they have terrible relationships. These women wanted to be in control. They didn't like being with a man. They didn't like, being in the position of a female. The man's supposed to be the head, the woman's supposed to be feminine. They don't like that. So they went for this to change to being a man. Now they see the problems that they're having. Comment below and tell me what you think. I wasn't even going to the other one. I don't know. This not. I don't know. I don't want to get flagged for that because that one's showing nudity in the article. You can see for yourself. You can look at the article for yourself and you see what's going on with that. This is basically a disorder, and it's hurting women. A lot of these people who offer this operations and stuff, they don't care about these people. It's just a money grab. Okay, they don't care about the mental scarring. I already said about the trans men, the trans women. Okay, most of them end up committing suicide. The trans women, most of them commit suicide. This will see how this thing is confusing. Trans women, most of them commit suicide because they're men, not women. Trans men, they could put themselves, women who turned into men, have the appearance of men, they could put themselves in a lot of harm's way. Okay, and they can end up harming themselves. And they need help because this is a mental disorder. This goes against the natural order of things. And like I said, it's Romans chapter 1. It says they gave up the knowledge of God for the, and God let them go off to a reprobate mind. And this is what it is. This is a reprobate mind. Reprobate. And he ended up going in all types of mess like this. And I think that scripture, when it comes to the reprobate, it's so deep to life because you could even be to reprobate of not knowing, like when I was talking about the Jacob Blake situation, even with, blacks not understanding that you were running to go get a knife in the car and, you were told to stop and you didn't want to stop. That's why you got shot 7 times. So the fact that you broke into a person's home, some just saying, for example, some blacks will be like, so what? So what? Reprobate mind. You don't have no respect for the law. Reprobate mind. You have no respect for the body that you were given. And you're changing it into something that it was not meant to be. And look at the problems they're having. Just food for thought. All right, later.